we believe that we can produce battery metals and massively compress the environmental and social cost by collecting these polymetallic nodules off the ocean floor and converting them into battery metals. And as we know, we're about to enter into a period of enormous increase in metal production because we want to move away from fossil fuels. But to do that, we have to build batteries, and billions of them.
Are there then not enough resources on land to supply the rising demand for electric vehicle batteries?
It's not so much that there aren't enough, it's about the environmental cost of them, because let's face, say, an electric vehicle battery cathode is mainly nickel heavy. And if we look at where the future supplies of nickel lie, they're in the form of nickel laterites. And of course, they form in wet tropical areas under rainforests. And so that's why we need to look at metal production from a full life cycle analysis. And we shouldn't be destroying our carbon sinks to get access to these metals. And our studies have shown that we can produce battery cathodes and compress the CO2 emissions by more than 90%, which is an enormous number. And so we need to stop destroying these carbon sinks, which also happen to be some of the most biodiverse areas on our planet.
Okay, so you might be helping save the planet on land, but what about underwater? Could there be damage because of deep sea mining to the seas, the ocean, and the ocean beds?
I'll say there's no perfect solution. There will be some impact, but what we are understanding are those impacts now, and we're also developing plans how we can mitigate those impacts. But Stephen, it's worth going back a step and saying, if we had our time again and took a planetary perspective, we would carry out extractive industries in the parts of the planet where there were the least life. And we'd go to our deserts, right? We wouldn't go to our tropical rainforests. And that's what we're dealing with in the abyssal zone. It's the biggest desert on the planet.
Which part of the world then are you focusing on the most now?
Well, the good news is there is one concentrated part of the Pacific Ocean. It's known as the Clarion Clipperton Zone. Today, there's less than 1.2 million square kilometers under exploration licenses. So there's no extraction happening for commercial profit. It's all exploration at the moment. And if we think about the oceans, they're around 360 million square kilometers in size. So we're talking about less than 0.3 of 1% of our oceans. And there's enough metals in that area to electrify the entire passenger transport fleet 2 times over. Now, our company, DeepGreen, which is soon to be known as the Metals Company, has control over 3 license areas. And we've defined the resource on 2 of them. And we know that on those 2 blocks, we have enough battery metals through these nodules to build 280 million electric vehicle batteries. So it's a really large resource, and thankfully, it's very concentrated in one little area.
Gerard, on land, obviously you need permission to excavate and mine. Is that true under the water as well? Is deep sea mining regulated?
Absolutely. It's very regulated by the International Seabed Authority. And so, and the International Seabed Authority is made up of 167 member states, plus the European Union. And so while we control 3 license areas through our sponsoring states, we also have the Company of China, who have 2 license areas, and Japan and Korea and Singapore and the United Kingdom and some European countries. So we're keeping good company out there, Stephen.
Countries are setting their own deadlines to go fully electric, some as soon as 2025. That's just 4 years away. Do you feel perhaps sometimes they're rushing into things without thinking through the full consequences of going electric?
Well, I think that only now are people really starting to focus on the full life cycle analysis of the supply chain. I think previously they've thought, well, we can push that problem off to other people. We can push that off to the battery makers. And we've all seen images of child labor in the Congo, and we find that very upsetting. But of course, what the biggest challenge that the planet faces at the moment is climate change. And of course, climate change is also the biggest threat to the oceans, and that's called rising temperatures. And so we need to cut our emissions. And so if we can, cut these emissions by more than 90% by making batteries out of these than land-based, that's a good thing. But only now are people getting focused. And so when you add up the commitments coming out of all of the automakers, supported by legislation, by governments, then the numbers don't add up, Stephen. We need to identify a new supply of these important battery metals. So, we're going to be playing a bit of catch up here with regards to supply, because, we've all now understand the externalities that have come from fossil fuels. But, people haven't given the same scrutiny to the production of metals, but that's about to change.
Have they given the same scrutiny to what will happen to the batteries after their life is up? Can they be recycled in future?
Well, good question. And our commitment, we believe that extractive industries have to stop. We're moving to a time when the circular economy is becoming real. And so the good news about an electric vehicle battery is that they are 99 point something percent recyclable. So once these metals go into the system, they're going to stay there. And I think that's something to give us all hope. And I don't expect in the case of the metals company or DeepGreen, we're going to be collecting these in 40 years' time. I hope that we've injected enough battery metals into the system that we're going to be recycling over and over and again, because, nickel can be recycled 100 times. And so I think we're moving to that circular economy. And so we can all take stock in that. What we need to make sure we don't do, though, is destroy our planet as we're finding that supply of these important battery metals. And that's where metals from polymetallic nodules come into it.
All right, we'll leave it there. Gerard Barron, Chairman and CEO of DeepGreen, many thanks for joining us on The Agenda.
Thanks, Stephen.